Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Erin and it is Book Review Friday once again. So today's book review is going to be a little different than my normal book reviews because this isn't a normal book. If you know by the title, we are talking about House of Leaves, which is by Mark Z. Danielewski, I think is how you say his name. This is a hunk of a book. It's a book. Honestly, my thoughts are very, very mixed right now. I don't fully know how I feel about this book. So the way I'm going to review this book is going to be a little bit different because it's not a normal book. So bear with me because this is going to be a different kind of format and I don't really know what I'm doing. We're doing it as I go. So, okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the reviews on Goodreads. I am on Goodreads right now. This book has an average of 4.1 stars, which is actually like really, really high. But I just want to tell you what some of these people are saying. Okay, this person says that they were completely mind blown by this book. This person says House of Leaves is a masterpiece of meta fiction. This one review is about being an RA and they gave their book to their friend, and their friend came over one night and threw the book at them and said, "Why would you do this? I can't finish it. It's so scary, blah, blah, blah." Basically what I'm trying to get at is if you look on Goodreads, the reviews are very good most of the time. There are the bad reviews, but a lot of people love this book and say it is the scariest, the craziest, the most horror book that you can get. Going into this book, I had a lot of feelings that I was going to either hate it or I was going to love it. Usually in the horror community, I'm on the outside looking in. When people love a horror book, I usually don't. I've come across that multiple times, that a lot of people love certain horror that I just don't. So I was very nervous about House of Leaves because I had a feeling that I was going to hate it and everyone else was going to love it. So those were my thoughts going into House of Leaves. I just want to give you guys my thoughts about what was gonna happen, like how I was feeling about going into this book. So the plot is very hard to describe, in all honesty. There is a plot, but there kind of isn't a plot, but there are multiple plots, if that even makes any sense. So I'm going to give you the most generic plot possible. A family moves into a house that is larger on the inside than it is on the outside. That's the plot, kind of, sort of. It's really hard to explain, but it's kind of the plot. So now I'm going to talk about how this book is narrated. It is written kind of like a research paper, an analysis of a documentary. So there is a documentary that is being discussed in the book, and the person talking is analyzing this documentary. Piece by piece, he will talk about the documentary, and you do get pieces of the documentary and kind of its full entirety. I have a lot of feelings about the way the book is narrated, but it's basically like a research paper on this documentary. Zampano, I don't know if that's how you say his name. I think it's Zampano. He is the one talking. He is the original author of this book, if that's what you want to call it. I use the term book loosely because I think of it more as a research paper than an actual book, but I mean, there are research-based books, so I guess you could call it that. And he is analyzing the Navidson Records, which is a documentary on the family that moves into the home that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. There is another narrator in the book. His name is Johnny, and Johnny is the person who finds the unfinished book that Zampano is working on. Zampano has died, so Johnny decides to take all the bits and pieces that he finds and he wants to finish it and put it together for him. So basically you get two viewpoints in this book. You get Zampano's and you get Johnny's. You also kind of get the Navidson family's point of view in certain aspects and in certain ways. It's kind of confusing, but Johnny and Zampano are the main narrators in my opinion. Now we're going to get into the way the book is written, which I think is the biggest defining characteristic of this book. It's what makes it what it is. So like I said, it is written like a research analysis of this documentary. There are tons of footnotes for each page. I mean, there are just footnotes forever. There are so many footnotes on each page. And I mean, you know, 4 or 5 might not seem like a lot, but when you're reading it, it's a lot. There are chapters dedicated to why the film is the way it is with like mythology, psychology. I mean, it's weird. I don't quite love it, but I'll get into that more. But basically there are chapters dedicated to what happens in the film, so you can read what's going on in the film. And then there are chapters dedicated to analyzing certain parts of the film and why certain characters do what they do, or you know, that kind of thing. It's a very much an analysis of the film. And then you get into some of the quirky bits of the book. Sometimes the book will have one word on a page and that's it. Sometimes the words will be upside down. Sometimes they will be diagonal. Sometimes they will be, you know, all over the place. The word house is always in blue. So the word house is always highlighted in the color blue. And then there are some parts of the book that are in red, which I think is interesting. I'm not 100% sure why that is. I'm sure if I thought about it and tried to analyze the book more, I would, but I don't care to, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. There is an appendix in the back of the book that has pictures and letters and poems and quotes and all kinds of stuff, and the footnotes will say, check out Appendix B, and then you have to flip to the back of the book and look at it, which is a lot of flipping back and forth throughout reading the book, which again reminds me of a textbook. It's a very interactive book, I will say that. There is one point where you have to decode a message in a letter, which I think is kind of fun. That part I liked. I liked how interactive it was. There are just pieces of the book I couldn't quite get over, I guess. Alright, so let's talk about my thoughts. I honestly don't really know how I feel about this book. I'm very conflicted. Part of me really enjoyed reading it and part of me hated the book. So I'm not quite sure how I feel yet. And I know this is going to be such a thing. I know there are some people that are gonna watch this video and hate my review because they're gonna be like, you're an idiot, you didn't catch on, you didn't do it right, you didn't read it right, you didn't understand it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm just gonna say this right now. I don't read horror to have these huge things that I have to think about when I'm reading it. I read horror for fun and to try to scare myself. That's pretty much why I read horror. And I feel like this horror book was trying to be complex, which is great, and I'm sure some people love that. However, I like more simple horror where, you know, it's pretty basic. Don't get me wrong, I like it to have a good plot that's stable and has a good idea and that's well written. And I'm not saying that I like stupid horror. I mean, sometimes I do. I love stupid things as well. But I'm not saying that I don't want to read a well-written book. It's just that these kinds of books make me feel like I'm in school. And I've been out of school for a few years now. I am out of college. And no offense, I don't really want to go back to feeling like I'm in school. So, the whole experience of the book and the reading it is very unique, and for that I really did enjoy the experience of the book, and I did like it. I did like the flipping upside down, the reading it weird ways, the sometimes flipping back and forth wasn't too big of a deal. Like, I didn't mind that. I will also like to say I did not find this book scary in the slightest. I have no idea what these people on Goodreads are talking about, how it terrified them and made them not want to sleep and all this kind of stuff. Where? I mean, I'm not saying that if this happened to me, I wouldn't be scared, because you bet your butt if my house was bigger on the inside than it was on the outside and there was a hallway and it was scary, yeah, I mean, I would be scared. But reading about it's not scary to me. I just was like, okay, all right. I mean, this sucks for them. It's obviously a terrifying experience, but it wasn't inherently scary to me. I didn't find anything about it scary. If I was in their shoes and it was happening to me, I think I'd feel a little differently, but reading about it wasn't scary. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I hated the way it was written, and I'm not talking about the weird pages and the upside down, not that. I'm talking about the analysis part. I hated that. I hated some of the parts. They were so boring. I just felt like they were trying to analyze things that didn't really need to be analyzed. I feel like they were reading too much into certain parts of the film, and I get that they were probably doing that on purpose and it was part of the plot, but it just bugged the actual crap out of me and I hated it. I just felt like I was in school again and I hated every minute of it. I'm gonna tell you right now, I skipped a lot of the pages that I didn't care about or I felt that weren't necessary to the story. I skipped a lot of the footnotes. Not like the most important footnotes. I could tell when it was going to be important and when it wasn't. So I would skim a lot and I would just kind of move through fast because I just didn't care. A lot of the mythology stuff I was skipping through. A lot of the analysis I really just didn't care about. So I skimmed a lot of it, which I don't know if that's how you're supposed to read the book or not, but that's what I did because I didn't care. Again, the footnotes could be slightly annoying depending on what it was. There are some footnotes that made a lot of sense and you wanted to read them, and then there were some footnotes where you're like, why is this here? It has no pertinent information to the plot at all, and I'm assuming they did that on purpose, but again, I just don't quite get it. Overall, the story was really cool. I liked the plot. I thought it was a unique idea, and I do like reading the book. I thought it was fun majority of the time, not all the time, because there were some parts that I just couldn't get past, but I did think it was a fun book to read, and for the experience I would highly recommend it. But for the analysis part and for that kind of aspect, I don't really care for this book. I get that it's trying to be all meta and it has a bigger point, and I don't care. I'm sorry, that's not why I read books. I'm not in high school or college anymore. I don't read books to analyze them. I read books for fun. So I didn't really care for that, and I know this is going to be a huge thing. This video will probably not go over well because some people are going to really hate my opinions because it's such a well-loved book in the community, which is fine. I'm glad people like it. I'm glad that this is a huge part of people's horror experience. It wasn't for me. I didn't love it, but I am happy that I read it, and I do think it's a fun book. I just don't know if I'd read it again. Maybe in a couple of years. Not anytime soon because I don't want to go through it all over again. So I hope this video made some kind of sense. I hope I don't sound crazy talking about this book because it's very hard to talk about, and it's just one of those books that you kind of have to read to get it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. I think that's how you say his name. I hope that's how you say his name. I get people's names wrong all the time, which is unfortunate because everyone gets my last name wrong all the time, and I hate to be that person. Okay guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, I'm sorry. These are just my thoughts on the book, and I'm glad that you like it and I didn't. To be fair, I didn't hate the book. I do like it. It's just weird. Think about subscribing to my channel if you want to see more book review Fridays. I do other stuff during the week, but on Fridays I try to always have a book review up. And yeah, guys, I guess I'll see you guys in my next video. If you have any recommendations for books that you would like me to check out, please leave them in the comments down below. I'm always looking for new books, you know that. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!